Well, the futures of country music's most iconic venues are being called into question after reports surfaced saying they may be sold. Jordan James went in search of answers tonight.
The Grand Ole Opry is one of a handful of venues in Nashville that could be under new ownership, a move that could impact country music.
What does second mean?
Uncertainty looms as the owners of the Grand Ole Opry and Ryman consider selling.
What are you going to do when some of that sells off?
The venues are owned by Opry Entertainment Group. A major stakeholder for them, Ryman Hospitality Properties, announced they are fielding offers. In a statement saying in part, quote, with the rise in growing global popularity of country music has led to several outside entities to inquire about investing in the genre's many venues. RHP believes it's best for long-term growth. However, country music fans like Katrina Fritz says otherwise.
Keep it here. Keep it locally owned. Keep it like a mom and pop situation in a sense. Keep it here. Keep it where it remains. Just keep doing what you should be doing and what you need to do. Bring the money in some other way.
It's unclear how a sale could impact operations, a question on the minds of many with the future hanging in the balance.
How many people are on Broadway in Nashville trying to get to here?
At last check, RHP says that no partnership agreements are in place, and also there's no guarantee that a transaction will take place. For now, reporting in Nashville, Jordan James, WSMV.